So, hello everyone. Again, in this session, we are going to discuss one of the important themes that's been there. That's called agriculture. As you know, the mains has been approaching. It's very nearby. I would say it's on 22nd. We'll start on 22nd August. And so, one of the important themes is again agriculture out there. One of the important themes is agriculture. It can be used again. It can be used in your GS3 examination. Again, a very substantial part in GS1 and so your essay examination as well. And probably if you're coming from a humanities background out there, and your optional is humanities based, you can even use that information in your optional to enrich your answers, to gain that extra mark out there, I hope you get this, because once you get the base of this, you'll understand that this is a very important theme. When it comes to UPSC round. If you maintain that balance out there, if you know what's agriculture, what's the problem associated with that, what's the problem associated with the subsidies, then what's the problem associated with the farmers out there, you will understand that it's an extensive topic. That requires an extensive research, that requires an extensive data, that requires an extensive case study to enrich your answer and your understanding out there. I hope my blabbering would work for you. And you get that it's one of the most important thing. Don't get flabbergasted. If you see a lot of questions come from agriculture theme. The theme includes, sir? The theme is nothing but it will include subsidies, it will include ecology, it will include environment, geography. All this stuff will be related with the agriculture out there. So you need to juxtapose your agriculture segment along with the other themes out there, because again, question has been there. Now, even if I ask you, so why there has been a low female labor force participation, you would directly say, sir, in rural India, because maximum women don't work out there. And if they do work, there has been a disguised unemployment out there. That's as simple connection as it can be. So again, you need to understand that there has been a lot of problems out there. You need to connect those dots. And amplify your knowledge. Based on that, you can answer any question out there, whether it's GS1, 2, 3, 4, essay, optional, anything. Even in your interviews as well, you can answer any of that without any delay, without any doubt, I would say. And seldom it will happen that you will not be able to answer anything out of it. So let's begin this journey. I'm going to present you what's the first PPT out there. Okay. So Indian agriculture, the dual challenges of income and sustainability. As you know that we have a target of doubling income, farmers' income by 2022, but that has been missed. Because of the various bottlenecks that's been there with the implementation of policy. Out there. So again, we're going to discuss that what's the problem associated with that as well. But so let's begin with certain things. Now, if I talk about the problems out there, sir, you need to understand the major problem with the agriculture. The first major problem is that more than 50% of population reside in the rural India. More than 50% of population. Now, with this population, what's the major source of occupation? Major source of occupation is agriculture. Major source of population is agriculture out there. Major source of population occupation is agriculture. And with agriculture, there has been a very, very potent challenge that's been attached with agriculture. That's called a disguised unemployment. So suppose take an example out there. I'll explain you with this example. Very simplified example. You'll get this in a one stroke out there. Okay. Disguised unemployment. Look at this. There has been a family of 5 people. out there. Four work in this farm, called 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 work in this farm. They're one partner, or they're one people out there in the household. One people go in the household out there, work. Work. Where it will work? It works in what we call the urban area. It works in urban area out there. Now, of course, sir, he has migrated to urban area for better livelihood. but he's not getting anything out of it. There has been a lot of exploitation in the urban areas, especially for those young graduates out there. They're not getting enough wages out there, not as per that's been adjusted with the inflation. Now he immediately decided, okay, let me come back to my original, what we called as a village, gaon. Let me come back to this. It's better to remain idle than to be exploited. It's as simple as that. It's better to remain idle as in comparison with the getting exploited in the market. So he joined his family. Now there has been a 5 members. Before him, there were 4 members and they were producing what we called as 4 kg of tomato. 4 kg of tomato. But as soon as he joined, output still remains 4 kg tomato. Output still remains 4 kg of tomato. Now with this, we can conclude that the marginal productivity is 0. With this, we can conclude that the marginal productivity is 0. What's a marginal productivity? By employing an additional member out there, how much extra units I'm producing? Again, by employing one additional member out there, how much extra units I'm producing? And in this case, there has been a 0 rise. There has been a 0% rise out there in the value of output. So, sir, though he is working, it seems that he's working, but the output is 0. That's nothing but a disguised unemployment and a hidden unemployment out there. That's disguised or hidden unemployment out there. Disguised or hidden unemployment out there. I hope you get this point. I hope you get this point. That's easy. I hope it's nothing that complicated. MP 0 is nothing but a marginal productivity 0. That value addition has been 0. That's why we called this as a marginal productivity 0 and a disguised unemployment. It's been a substantial problem when it comes to rural India. It's been a substantial issue because a lot of people, you see, it seems they are working, it seems they are employed, but again, so the value addition has been 0. The value addition in the income is also 0. There has not been that much substantial increase. There has not been substantial increase in the income and output out there. I hope you got this point. I hope you got this point out there. Again, sir, that's one of the problems out there. That's one of the problems out there with the agriculture. The another problem is, sir, deep-rooted patriarchal setup. Deep-rooted patriarchal setup. Deep-rooted patriarchal setup. Deep-rooted patriarchal setup. Now, sir, in addition to understand this, imagine that not many women out there are working in agriculture field. Even it doesn't seem that they are working. You can't identify too much of disguised unemployment. Why? Because there has been a deep-rooted patriarchal setup. A lot of people think that a man needs to be a provider. He is the ultimate breadwinner out there, while the primary role of a woman is to take care of her family out there. She doesn't have to earn the bread. Her primary role is to serve the family, is to serve her husband, is to take care of the family, is to take care of the house out there, to do household chores on a regular basis. But sir, when it comes to men, he is the ultimate provider out there. That's the differentiating role that's been divided based on gender, or what we call based on patriarchal setup. As a result, there has been a lower labor force participation out there in rural Indias. Lower labor force participation out there. Lower labor force participation rate out there in a rural India. Okay. I hope you got this point out there. Patriarchal setup has been a lot to do with the economy. Again, families that have a deep-rooted patriarchal setup or mindset out there, the women don't function that primary bread earner family out there. Don't function as a main member of the market, because again it restricts a particular moment of a woman in a market out there, restricts the moment of a woman out there, restricts that moment. I hope you got this point. I hope you got this point. What's a deep-rooted patriarchal setup? Another thing, there has been a different issue with the woman, but we'll discuss that later. We'll discuss that later. There is no point in discussing the women issues out there, because it's been associated with the agriculture, not with the women issues out there. That's been relevant at the present out there in the market at this moment. At this moment. Okay, let's move it with that. Let's move it with that. What's the another issue? What's the another issue? So there has been issue of a low land size or fragmented land out there, or fragmented land out there. What's the meaning of fragmented land? As you can understand, sir, more than 80% of our farmers has less than 2 acres of land, less than 2 hectares of land, and 1 hectare is equal to 2.53 acres out there. What's the problem with that? You can't apply economies of scale into that. You can't apply economies of scale. Take an example. How will you run a tractor out there when the land is just 1.53 acres out there? That's impossible to run that. If you want to do that, again, it will increase your cost out there. It will not be profitable for you. It will not be profitable for you. Increased cost directly results in a lower profit side. Again, you will not reap the benefits. You will not reap the benefits of what we call the economies of scale in economics. So, sir, you must have seen that example. Whenever you purchase a wholesale thing out there, whenever you purchase a large quantity of things in a wholesale market, you get a certain amount of discount. That's because it's getting economies of scale. But if you purchase a single thing out there, or individual commodity out there in the market, it will again increase your cost out there, because the economies of scale doesn't imply on a lower volume. It does apply on a large volume out there. I hope you get this point out there. Now again, with a fragmented land, you can't create contract farming. What's a contract farming? You can't create a contract farming. Take an example for this. Again, sir, imagine if there is Ambani out there, his Reliance out there, and Reliance want to create a contract with a certain amount of farmers out there. He said, okay, give me that much of amount of something called potato, and I'll give you a certain amount for this. But sir, imagine there has been a lot of farmers out there. How will you ensure homogenization of quality? That's impossible, because there has been a lot of farmers that's been involved out there. There has been a lot of farmlands and small farmlands that's been there. It's impractical to imagine and counter that what's quality has been going on. Homogenization of quality is uttermost difficult task, because again, that soil quality will be different, the chemical fertilizers that will be used will be different. So how can you expect that output will be same out there? How can you expect that? That's foolishness at its best. So that's nothing but homogenization. That's homogenization. Homogenization of goods. It's next to impossible. I hope that's you are done with this issue. That's again a simple one, bang on point. There is no unnecessary thing to move left and right. Just hit the center out there and you'll get that. I hope that's clear with you. Again. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. One, we have discussed the disguised unemployment. Another, we have discussed that there has been a fragmented land. Another thing we have discussed, there has been a lower female labor force participation. What's the next thing we are discussing? Okay, let's move on to the next thing. It's called subsidy problem. What's subsidy problem? Sir, the problem associated with subsidy is called what we know as MSP. MSP is nothing but a minimum support price that's been offered to the farmers over and above the market price. That's MSP is over and above the market price. Okay, over and above the market price. Now, what's the demerit of this? What's the demerit of this? Sir, MSP though announced for the 25 crops out there, announced for the 25 crops, officially on ground, it's just been given on wheat and rice. Just been given on wheat and rice. That's 2 crops out there, wheat and rice. Now again, it will encourage farmers to grow these crops only because they are getting a better price for these crops as compared to the other crops out there in the market. Now again, it will encourage them to grow only these 2 crops. Now, if farmers are encouraged to grow only these 2 crops called wheat and rice, it will lead to a practice of what we call as a monoculture. It will facilitate the activity what we call as a monoculture out there. Now you say, sir, what's the demerit of this monoculture? Sir, it has a lot of demerits when it comes to environmental perspective. Monoculture often leads to soil deterioration. Soil deterioration. Soil deterioration. Now, what does this mean? Sir, as you have studied in your geography out there, that NPK ratio should be 4:2:1. NPK ratio of a soil should be 4:2:1. That means nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium should be in the ratio of 4:2:1. But when you practice monoculture out there, it usually disturbs this ratio out there. As a result, soil get deteriorated or get contaminated at that moment. It will result in the losing of a productivity. It hampers the productivity of soil out there. Okay, that's the main issue out there, because whenever you focus on a one crop out there, it ultimately takes away the nutrients from the soil, eventually lead to a soil deterioration. That's the one disadvantage that it's been associated. Now take another example from the market perspective out there. Farmers are encouraged to produce only 2 crops out there, that's been wheat and rice. Again, sir, it will lead to oversupply of these 2 crops, in the market. It will eventually lead to oversupply of these 2 crops. Oversupply of these 2 crops out there in the market. No, sir. Give me another thing out there. Oversupply of these 2 crops will ultimately lower down its price. But what about the other crops out there? What about the horticulture? What about the fruits? What about the other grains out there? There will be undersupply of that. There will be undersupply of other crops. Undersupply of other crops out there. Now, what will eventually lead to inflation for these crops? Eventually, it will lead to inflation. Eventually, it will increase what we call as a consumer price index. Consumer price index. Okay, it will eventually lead to increase consumer price index. Now, with increase in consumer price index, imagine the condition of that small farmer who is holding less than 2 acres of land or 2 hectares of land. Small farmer who is holding 2 hectares of land. Sir, imagine his condition. Just step into the shoes of that farmer. Just step into the shoes of this farmer. He wants to provide a best diet, a nutritional diet to his son or daughter out there. Because again, that's very important. Hidden hunger has been a real issue in the India. He wants to provide that a nutritional diet. But when he goes to market, so he is the producer of the food. But whenever he goes to a market out there to buy certain things called fruits, he will see that it's been out of its reach. Because the consumer price index has been there. It's been increased. Inflation has been increased because of subsidies. Because of subsidies that has distorted market. Subsidies that had distorted market out. Again, it will be out of his reach. He can't afford that. Ultimately, the brunt of inflation is borne by these small farmers or the middle class families out there. Brunt of inflation. brunt of inflation will be borne by? Brunt of inflation will be borne by middle class families and small farmers out there. Okay, that's been the another issue that's involved with the agriculture, the problem of subsidies, as it leads to nothing but market distortion and the practice of a monoculture. That's been negative, and it's always you call it as a negative repercussions for the farmers out there. Negative repercussions. Okay, sir. Now another issue that's been associated with the subsidy is that it involves a lot of leakages out there. A lot of leakages. A lot of leakages. Imagine there has been a urea subsidy. Urea is nothing but a nitrogen out there. So urea subsidy is provided. How it functions? How it functions? Suppose there has been a shop. Suppose there has been a shop in the rural India, and this shopkeeper is being given or being instructed to provide urea to these farmers at 5 rupees a kg. At 5 rupees a kg. At 5 rupees a kg. But the international price of urea. Is 20 rupees a kg, or a market price or international price. Now you would say, sir, it will create a loss for this shopkeeper because the market price is 20, but he's selling at 5 rupees because he's been instructed by the government. Rest 15 rupees will be paid or borne by. Rest 15 rupees will be borne by. Rest 15 rupees will be borne by government out there through its budget, through its budgetary resources. Through its budgetary resources. Now, so you will say, what's the problem with that? The problem with this shopkeeper, the problem is with this shopkeeper. He's corrupt person. He's a corrupt person. What he will do? He will divert or leak. He will divert that urea to international markets. For example, to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. And will earn 20 rupees a kg. And will show in his accounts, look, government, I've been dealing with the farmers. I've been providing this urea at 5 rupees a kg. Give me that 15 rupees subsidy out there. For God's sake, give me that. And government will give that because the bureaucracy is inefficient. The bureaucracy doesn't have specialized knowledge or the domain knowledge out there to carry out or look into the accounts of that. So what will happen? He will earn a 20 rupees kg. He will another earn a 15 rupees out there with what we call as a budgetary resources out there. It will be a win-win situation for this shopkeeper, but a loss for the government, loss for the public out there because it's a wastage of taxation money out there, and a loss for the small farmer out there because he's not getting any subsidized urea out there. I hope you got this point. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So that's how it's creating what we call as a, it's nothing, it's a rotten system out there. It's a rotten system out there that can't be repaired. It's beyond repairable. It's beyond repairable out there because it can't be repaired. It's hell out there. It's hell out there. People are not getting their dues. There has been a lot of corruption. Food Corporation of India has been one of the most corrupted agencies out there when it comes to its audit accounts. Again, say you want to do best, but system doesn't allow you to do that. System doesn't allow you to do that. And look at these leakages, this monoculture practices, or what we call as a consumer price index rise. It all goes against farmers. You want to help them. You want to eradicate that helplessness out there. But again, there has been a lot of bottlenecks that you can't resolve in a very short span of time. You need a certain amount of time to eradicate these bottlenecks. I hope you're thorough with these problems out there. Okay, you're thorough with these problems out there. Let's move on to the PPT now. What PPT says. See, the structural challenge, land and water scarcity, fragmented land holding. One of the major events that I've told is because of the fragmented land holdings, you are automatically can't enter into a contract farming directly. Can't enter into a contract farming directly. Contract farming directly. 86% of Indian farmers are small and marginal. They are holding less than 2 hectares. Sir. This fragmentation hinders large-scale mechanization and efficient resource use. See, this has been written that it will hinder large-scale mechanization. You can't use tractor or any other what we call the advanced techniques out there when the land is very small, because it will hinder what we call economies of scale. It will hinder economies of scale. Then irrigation inefficiency. Only 48% of the net sown area is irrigated. Severe groundwater depletion affects 17% of crops. As you can see, sir, Punjab and Haryana have been facing a so severe, Punjab and Haryana has been facing what we call the severe shortage of groundwater. Severe shortage of groundwater out there. Severe shortage of groundwater out there. Okay. So again, sir, leading to unsustainable water extraction. Then another thing is soil health degradation. Soil health has been degraded because of the practice of monoculture. NPK ratio has been completely compromised. Out there. So I hope you got this point. Out there. These are certain structural issues. Out there. Again, sir, look at another problem, another set of problems. APMC dominance and barriers. That's another issue. When we will study what we call as APMC nothing is agriculture produce marketing committee. So what's the problem with the APMC mandi out there? Let's analyze this. What's the issue with that? For example, there has been a small farmer out there. Small farmer out there. Okay. He goes to a mandi. For example, take an example of Azadpur mandi out there in the Delhi out there. Azadpur mandi that's been located in the Delhi, heart of Delhi. He goes with this produce. to APMC mandi, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee, official mandi. Now again, sir, he gonna sell his produce to a trader who's gonna offer more. Say for example, there has been a lot of traders, but we take the example of 3 traders out there. T1, T2, T3 out there. T1, T2, T3 out there. T1, T2, T3. T1 says, okay, that's a 2 kg of tomato out there. That's 2 kg of tomato out there. For example, T1 says, I'm gonna pay 100 rupees a kg. Okay. Then he will go to T2 or T3. But sir, T2, T3 also offers 100 rupees a kg. Also offers 100 rupees a kg out there. T1, T2, T3, 100 rupees a kg out there. 100 rupees a kg out there. T1, T2, T3. That's called cartelization. That's called a cartelization. Cartel has been formed. Cartelization of system. Cartelization of system. Cartelization of system. As you can see, sir, this system has been formed. This system has been formed to exploit farmers to the fullest, to exploit farmers to its fullest. Exploit farmers because they are not offering any reasonable price out there in the market. They are not offering any sort of reasonable price out there in the market. As a result, to avoid, to eradicate this exploitation, MSP system was introduced. MSP system was introduced. Now, sir, you must have seen that farmers protest out there in 2020 and 2022. What's the main reason behind that? They want legalization of this MSP. At this moment, it's just a government policy. It doesn't have any legal backing out there. It doesn't have any law. It doesn't get passed from the parliament out there. It's just a policy measure out there that's been there to help farmers to get a reasonable price for their produce, to reasonable price for the labor involved. But it's just a policy. It can be backed off or taken back by the government at any moment of time. At any moment of time. I hope you got these points. That's the issue with the APMC Mandi, that there has been a cartelization of the system that's been set up to exploit farmers, It's nothing but an arm twisting. It's nothing but an arm twisting mechanism. Arm twisting mechanism. Arm twisting mechanism out there. Okay. Now there has been a limited farmer credit. So as you can see, a significant 40 to 50% of farmers rely on informal sources like money lenders due to inadequate access to formal credit, leading to debt cycle. So it's very simple out there. They are nothing but thin file clients. Thin file clients. What does that mean? They don't have too much of documents out there to get formal loans from a bank at lower rate of interest. That's the big issue out there. So in order to get those money, they rely on informal sector, what we call as a SATG sort of thing out there, to get a lump sum money at substantially higher prices, at exorbitant prices out there, at exorbitant rate of interest. At exorbitant rate of interest. For example, the rate of interest would be 27 to 28%. It's practically impossible to repay that amount of loan in one life. You need generations to repay that. You must have seen that in movie as well. A whole generation pays that loan. A father may not be able to pay whole of his loan in his lifetime. His son will pay, his grandson will pay. That's how the cycle runs. That's nothing but debt trap. Debt trap or vicious cycle. Once you are involved in that, trust me, there is no escape option. It's just like a Squid Game. When you enter into this, either you'll return with the full amount or you're dead. That's how thing works. Okay. Another is inadequate storage. Poor post-harvest infrastructure results in 10 to 16% of grain loss and 20 to 30% perishable losses, severely impacting farmer income. That's another issue. So I'll make you understand with this chart out there. So farmers produce something. So for example, farmers produce something. Farmers produce. Now this produce will be bought by FCI, Food Corporation of India, at MSP. Let me write this. At MSP. Now, when Food Corporation buy this whole lot of stuff or whole lot of buffer out there, it needs a warehouse system to store these grains out there. It needs a warehouse system warehouse system to store these greens. But unfortunately, we don't have that sort of infrastructure available in our nation. What does FCI rely to? It relies to cover and plinth. Cover and plinth. And it's been the most vulnerable for the extreme climate that we are facing currently. It's fragile to this climatic change that we are witnessing, either extreme heat waves or extreme monsoon, El Nino, all these stuff. It's useless out there because it ultimately results in a wastage of a lot of food out there. Wastage of a lot of food, and wastage of food in a country that's still being developing out there, where 80 crore people still rely on PDS, is a crime. It's a crime out there. It's nothing less than a crime where you waste food out there, especially in a developing nation like India. Especially in a developing nation like India. Especially in a developing nation like India out there. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So another is low mechanization. Against the farm mechanizations, the idea was brought during the Green Revolution, but again, the scale has not been achieved till this date. The scale has not been achieved till this date because of a lot of limitations out there. A lot of low land, fragmented land has been there, and it's almost impractical to apply this farm mechanization in these lands out there. Farm mechanization stands at only 40 to 45% in India, starkly contrasting with over 90% in developing economies. Again, sir, that's we are comparing ourselves with the developed economies out there, with the Scandinavian nations, with the Europe out there, but it's again impractical to compare India with that, because there has been no competition all along with that. Look at China. It's been doing fantastically when it comes to economics. It's been doing fantastically. We can't even compete with our neighbor out there. We can't even compete with our neighbor out there. That's the limitation out there. That's the mindset that's been there. The mindset of corruption has been deeply ingrained in our minds. People don't want government jobs to serve people. They want government jobs to do corruption out there. They want to earn that sort of black money because that's how things work. It's a typical Marx structure out there. Typical Marx structure out there. Again, sir, another issue is poor supply chains, inefficient logistics. Logistics has been a big issue, sir. Our logistic cost is 13 to 14% of GDP. When you compare that with the advanced economies, it's nothing but 6 to 7% out there. What does that mean? It means that transportation has been expensive because roads are not well built. Nitin Gadkari says that we're going to build these roads on lines of London. That's a complete bullshit. That's a complete bullshit. You're taking, it's a tax like Europe, and services like Somalia. It's that thing that's been happening. So again, the logistic cost is 13 to 14% out there. Ultimately, it increases the cost. It increases the cost of product out there. Increases the cost of product out there. Which eventually leads to inflation, and the brunt again will be borne by the middle class. Brunt again will be borne by middle class out there. Okay. I hope that's been clear. Another thing, limited agri-tech adoption. Digital literacy and access to advanced farming technology remain low, particularly for smallholders, hindering modern agriculture practices. There has been a lot of modern agriculture practices that's been introduced in the recent time, like zero budget natural farming. Like zero budget natural farming. Like zero budget natural farming, like precision agriculture. But sir, the point is, these are just theories. These are just there in the books out there, not being practiced at the ground, not being completely practiced at the ground. What's the reason for that? The reason is a low digital literacy, low technological literacy out there. They're not aware. See, these are just a common people out there. They're just a layman. There's normal farmers out there. They don't know enough things. You need a proper care center or a service center to provide them an adequate information at right moment. You need to provide that sort of education to them. Need to provide that sort of education to them so they can apply these modern technologies with lower cost in their land. With lower cost in their land. That's what problem is. Because there has been a less digital literacy, less internet penetration out there. As a result, they can't even look what's been going on around the world. What's been going on around the world. You can even look what's been going on in the rural areas. There has been a limited internet penetration at this moment as well. At this moment as well. So these are certain problems that's been associated. That's been again associated with what we call as a agriculture. These are broad things. These are very broad things. What are the reform area? What are the reform area? We have ENAM expansion, strengthen farmer producer organization. See, ENAM is a different topic. We're going to study that when we study APMC at detail. Why we said that strengthen farmer producer organization? To have a decent bargaining. To have decent bargaining. Okay. Another thing, we want to implement the contract farming out there, but the problem is there has been no homogenization of product. Seems impossible at this moment. What we need is a uniformity of soil, uniformity of process to develop a certain output out there. But again, it requires a lot of time out there. It's just a future proposition. It's just a future proposition or recommendation out there that needs time to get fully implemented. Okay. What are the reform? Other, so water use efficiency. There has been हर खेत को पानी policy. हर खेत को पानी. Per drop, more drop. These are certain water use efficiency, micro irrigation and drip sprinkler to achieve 50% efficiency in water efficiency out there. Okay. Soil health management has been there. Crop diversification is very important to avoid the malpractice of monoculture. To avoid the malpractice of monoculture out there. Okay. Organic natural farming. It's been Sikkim has become a first state to adopt. Sikkim has become a first state to adopt. Who has become or declared as organic state. Or declared as organic state out there. Okay. So again, these are certain solutions out there, but the problem is again the implementation. It's implementation, technology adaptation. We need agri-tech innovation, subsidies, drones, IoT, what we call as a precision agriculture. Out there. But sir, these are just on paper. You need a digital literacy. You need that information base. You need that resources to implement that on ground and on time. It's again, we have missed the target of doubling the farmer's income by 2022, but it's still not that late. We need to implement these as soon as possible. Policymakers need to be that active to implement these things. Bureaucracies are paid for this, and you need to take action at a certain moment at the right time out there. Cold chain and logistics need to be improved. Food processing needs to be improved. Digital literacy needs to be improved. There are a lot of things that need to be improved. There are a lot of bottlenecks. There has been a lot of problems out there that need to be resolved as quickly as possible. So what's the path forward for doubling income and ensuring sustainability? Targeted policies. We need a good policies. We need a better implementation for bureaucratic structure out there. Public-private partnership. Again, private sector needs to be included, but it should not be opened completely to private sector. It will lead to exploitation of a small farmers. We need government interference to some extent because it's nothing but a marginalized section of society. When I called it's nothing but a marginalized section of society. Marginalized section of society. Again, farmer-centric approach is needed. We need a farmer-centric approach. Sustainable future we need. Farm for farmer. There has been a lot of reports. Dalwai report has been there that recommends a lot of good reforms, but again, it's not being implemented. Dalwai report. So we need all these stuff to be implemented as quickly as possible in order to double the farmer's income 2028. That we have missed the target. So that's it from my side. I hope that's enjoyable session for you. Hope you're good. Hope you find this attractive. Thank you.